And Dave Warehouser was in there. He said, you know, the industry made a hell of a mistake when they let you retire, because he said, you used to tell the story of what we were doing in forestry and no one's told it since. I said, will you go up to Tacoma and tell that to Charlie Bingham? You ask about Bill Greeley. Colonel Greeley was, of course, one of the pioneer foresters in the United States. He started in the Forest Service in 1905 when it became the Forest Service. And in 1910 was the district forester, what they call a regional forester in those days, in Region 1 at Missoula, Montana, during the terrible fires that occurred in the Bitterroot Mountains in 1910. Fires that burned in Montana and Idaho about 3 million acres, in which a lot of people lost their lives and a tremendous amount of forest was devastated. And Greeley immediately got imbued with the idea that if we were going to practice forestry in the United States, the first thing we had to do was to run the smoke out of the woods. We had to prevent forests from burning up repeatedly, which they've been doing for years because we had no protection worthy of the name throughout most of the United States up till that time. We've had some bad fires in the last several years. Part of it's due to the fact that we've got a lot of trees that are dead in the national forest, for example, and some of the other public lands, because we haven't been doing a very good job of cleaning up the messes after bad insect infestations and after bad fires in the past. In the earlier days, once we had the calamities occur to a forest, like for example the Columbus Day storm in 1962, where we had 17 billion feet of timber blow down in 5 hours over an area of 30 million acres in Northern California, Western Oregon, Western Washington, and Southern British Columbia. That year we got busy right away. A week after the storm, we had the first meeting of people that got together in the Northwest to develop a coordinated program to go out and clean up the mess. Get out there and get these dead trees out of the woods. Reduce the fire hazard, beat the beetles to the trees, and to save the wood for our economy. And that's exactly what we did. Fellows like Bill Greeley that really imbued people with the idea that trees are a renewable resource. If we protect the areas, if we reforest the areas, we can continue to have the kind of a crop we need. And do we need the crop? I should say we do. 80% of all the homes in America are built of wood, and the wood is the only renewable resource we've got for building materials. If we hadn't made the effort in the western United States, Forest Service first, the state forestry departments later, to really get after fires when they occurred, get them when they were small, don't let them get ahead of you. We wouldn't have had anywhere near the forest we've got left today. So anybody who says that we set the stage for the fires that have occurred the last 2 or 3 years because we prevented fires and fought fires in the early days really don't know what they're talking about. That's why we need to have a redetermination of what is the forest policy of the United States. We need to have it badly. In order to get that, we're going to have to learn how to get out and let the public know what the real problems are, a lot better than we've done for a long time. No one's telling the story of what we've done in forestry in this region in the last 50 years. It goes together. You don't have to practice wildlife management and forest management as exclusive of one another. You practice them together. And it can be done very symbiotically. Symbiosis means what's good for me is good for you. So what's good for the trees is good for the animals. And that's what we ought to do. I made the point in this whole goddamn hearing, in my testimony, that they had 6 billion feet of annual mortality in the national forest, 6 billion feet. But if we got off our ass and got the goddamn road system up where it was accessible, we could salvage probably half of that. And if you could salvage half of that, for Christ's sake, that's enough to build 300,000 houses a year. And this was during the period when Congress had just passed a law, the purpose of which was to guarantee that every goddamn American family could have a decent home. And in the next 10 years, we were going to build 26 million new houses in the United States. That was the government's policy. So here the government owning this big chunk of timber, I had a chance to contribute through the salvage of this stuff 300,000 homes a year.